Hi, everybody. Welcome. This is Rotary Club of Silicon Valley. Every week, we try to bring you stories of people who are working to make a difference in the world in some fashion or another, whether that's locally, globally, or in our case, digitally. And we are part of Rotary International, 1 point something million members and 36,000 clubs around the world. Ours, the Rotary E-Club of Silicon Valley, while based in Northern California, has a global membership. And we are always excited to be able to talk to people who are joining us from absolutely anywhere. Our club has a special interest in innovation, entrepreneurship, and education, and I think we're going to hit at least two of those themes as we jump into what we're talking about today with the Center for Interactive Learning and Collaboration. We have with us Tammy in Minnesota, Amy in Utah, and Allison in Pennsylvania to tell us about their work to bring all sorts of compelling educational opportunities to kids in different places, and a little bit about the model that they use to make that happen. So you read plenty about their bios on the way in, a little bit farther up our page here. So I'll just pass it straight over. Tammy, why don't you get us started? Thank you very much for taking time to tell us about what CILC is doing, and I hand the mic over to you.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Rushton, for that introduction. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of tell you a little bit about who CILC is. But before we do that, we always like to take a moment to do a land acknowledgement as the Center for Interactive Learning. So the Center for Interactive Learning is housed on the ancestral and spiritual land of the Dakota people. And since Allison, Amy, and myself are also in various places across the United States, I like to acknowledge where they're from. So I'm also on the land of the Dakota people where I am from. Allison is on the lands of the Unami Lenape, and Amy is on the lands of the Shoshone. So let's talk now about who CILC is. So just to let you know, we're a not-for-profit. We've been around since 1994. And we like to say we're the International Clearinghouse or the Match.com for finding an interactive virtual field trip. We were around before there was a dating app, and we're much, much cooler. We get to take you on a trip. So we have over 200 interactive, or 2,300 interactive virtual field trips provided by over 200 content providers from around the world. And over on the screen, you can see a picture of one of our wonderful nature centers doing one of their programs live out in the forest with one of their ambassador animals. So it's always great to see that live and in action right there. And since 1994, CILC has been a leader of synchronized distance learning. Our goal has always been not to sit back and watch it, but also to be involved and get started. So we were there when there was video conferencing equipment, all the way to something that everyone enjoys and takes advantage of every day. And we've kind of gotten used to, and many of those platforms have become verbs in our mindset. But our goal is to make sure that every student, no matter where they are, teacher, lifelong learner, or community member, has an opportunity to connect themselves to a content provider, which is a zoo, aquarium, cultural organization, history center, or an expert to do an interactive virtual learning program. I'm going to hand it on over now to my wonderful coworker, Amy, who's going to tell you a little bit more about who we are.
Thanks so much, Tammy and Rushton and everyone. Thank you so much for having us here today. We're so excited to be sharing about CILC and the great work that we do. So as Tammy had mentioned, we bring the world of live interactive field trips into classrooms for children. And certainly you can see our mission there. When COVID hit, when the pandemic hit, it really changed everything. We had visited with parents and teachers and really learned that so many students were disenfranchised and really didn't have access to the type of education that we were providing. And not only that, but how the teachers were talking about how important that education was to those students, because it really helps kids connect to learning in the classroom. And so we find our mission, put a laser focus on our mission in ensuring that we were working toward providing that experience for all children, as Tammy had said, regardless of regardless of their location or financial capability. And, you know, I recently spoke to an educator at Minnesota Connections Academy, which is it's the online public school system for Minnesota. And I just wanted to get her, I was curious about what her experience was with the pandemic. And she said, for her, you know, first grade kids were really hit the hardest, that many of them had never even been to school, that there was a real lack of social skills not being in the classroom, and that they were more sensitive, and certainly not just first grade, but there was a widening of the achievement gap, and many students were left behind in grades. Conversely, there were also kids who traditionally didn't do well in the brick and mortar schools, and, you know, kids with special needs, kids who had been bullied or had endured trauma, who actually the online school was a really safe place for them. So there's a couple different sides. Thanks, Tammy, for that. The great thing about what we do is that, you know, research really supports the power of virtual field trips, whether that's in person or whether that is virtual. You know, a great deal of evidence really demonstrates the impact on kids, how it strengthens critical thinking, increases tolerance and empathy. And it really also helps kids in building digital skills in our world today, as well as global competencies and awareness. One other thing, I just wanted to make sure you were noticing the quotes in the upper right corner. Those are testimonies of educators, of content providers, and if you get a chance, take a read. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you, Amy. So just to kind of narrow it down a little bit more for the goal of CILC, we, as an interactive clearinghouse, we have 3 ways for educators and members to get involved. The first way is through our interactive virtual field trips. Like I said, there are over 2,300 virtual field trips out there. From a variety of topics to what you see up there is a shell from the Meso period, so with the Royal Terrell Museum, to learning about slime with Ann Arbor Hands-On Museum. Another way we have involvement is we have a collaboration space where students can connect to another group of students on various topics. This can be anything from reading, pen pal virtually throughout the year, or even a debate that you want to have against another group of students. But it's a way of doing a cultural exchange. And the picture you see on the screen is 2 groups of students that we're connecting. One group is in Africa and another group is in the United States. And they're doing a cultural exchange with one of our providers helping kind of facilitate that. And then another way to get involved, and this is kind of the easiest way to jump in, is CILC during that pandemic found out people needed access to programming and opportunities. So we created a community of learning. It's our way of providing free programming at least 2 days a week right now during our slower summer season, but we'll ramp back up during that school year when it comes to the United States school year anyway. And we provide a free programming at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time that is totally up to open to anyone for K and up, that they can enjoy programming. And what you're seeing there is the Alaska Sea Life Center doing an amazing program about their sea lions right in their gallery. And I really love that one where Darren's opening that jaw up so they can see the power of that sea lion, and at the same time that magnificent animal is in the back. But I know Allison is going to go a little bit more in depth on it too.
Yes, so a little bit of how this all works. So one perspective we love to show is how the learners are able to engage. They're able to we're able to complement the different areas of curriculum, but also bring a lot of fun into the classroom through real conversations with experts, by going down into the oceans with dolphins, but all of it being able to not only hopefully ignite a really exciting opportunity and passion for learning, but it's also an opportunity to prepare people to be really comfortable with going into any type of cultural space or having conversations in digital platforms, as we had mentioned. Now, this is our view from the learner side. We have lots of different imagery that you're able to check out that will show lots of learners in action. But we also want to make sure that we tell you a little bit about how it works for our experts. Our experts are made of we call them content providers. And these individuals are educators that come from a variety of different institutions, as we have mentioned. And they also are people that are experts in their own fields and have just desire to provide more educational experiences in that arena. You can see some images here. You can see that there's lots of technology involved. So we're able to support those that are setting up their studios, thinking a little bit about understanding what virtual learning is and how to get involved. And also we're able to think about those blended learning experiences we're seeing, where individuals might be learning with friends at a distance or with teachers at a distance while they're in person, which you can see in our other experience here. So we're here for professional development. If you want to try to jump in and become a content provider or learn a little bit more about this virtual learning, we're here to support both. There's a variety of partners in which we work with, and I'm going to hand that over to Amy to speak about a little bit more in just a few. But we just like to make sure to call out some of our big partners that not only provide programming on their member pages, but in certain situations, having been a content provider myself, creating a partnership with CILC was a really great way to keep a global connection and have our virtual door to a museum I once was involved with open in so many different ways. I'm going to pass it back to Amy now to talk about to tell you a little bit more about how you can get involved.
Thanks so much, Allison. Certainly, there are many ways to get involved in partnering with CILC. Look, we believe that every child should have access to what we do as a nonprofit, and we're passionate about teaming with companies and individuals who really want to make a difference and who feel the same way. So we've created a number of different initiatives for people to get involved, for companies to get involved, individuals. You can sponsor a class, a subject, a number of students, donate, or even introduce us to somebody at an organization who may have the same beliefs that we do. And of course, become a member. It's free. Go to our website, check out our website. You can sign up. You can sample some of what we have to offer, but we would love for you to get involved. In terms of our initiatives, we are also working on a number of future initiatives. We would love to target areas that we're outside of what we normally do. So after school programming is an area where we feel like we could really make a difference. For example, like with the Boys and Girls Club or with after school programs at school. Also expanding on our global collaborations. That's something that we would really like to work on for the future. And then of course, with professional development, providing professional development for our content providers and our educators who are really seeking that connection. And then lastly, I feel like this is such an important slide because this gives you a real kind of top of view look at the difference that we are making. And certainly I'll just point out a few of these, but like, for instance, we have members in 112 countries, global audiences across the nation. I mean, that alone breaks down so many barriers and is powerful. looking at, we've provided 113,000 virtual learning experiences, 3.5 million students we've engaged. 25% of our programs are free, and that's something that we're working on. We would really like to bump that number up to 50%. But nevertheless, we're proud of what we have accomplished, but we still have a lot of work to do. So Rushton, we just want to thank you for giving this opportunity to share the work of our nonprofit. And certainly, here's some contact information for all of us. At the least, certainly check out our website at CILC.org and take a look around. And with that, we would love to answer any questions that anybody may have for us.
All right, Amy, thanks a lot. So there are a number of questions that I already got on my list. We'll jump into these as well. Before I do, let me introduce who we have on the call. And in addition to our speakers, we have here in the Bay Area our paella master, Shag Shagrin. We have our president-elect, Nick Lagarde, up in Vancouver. My name is Rushton Hurley. I'm in charge of programs, and I am excited to hear a little bit more about this. So as we look at this, one of the first questions that pops into my head has to do with the business model. So it would seem to me that there is that as a nonprofit, you have service income that represents schools paying for participation in some way, but you also have organizations supporting your ability to provide these things for free to classrooms in different places. Can you tell us a little bit more about what the business model looks like for CILC?
Sure, I'd be happy to answer that. Originally, before we became a nonprofit, we were a fee-for-service organization. And certainly when we had switched over to a 501c3, we came up, we really saw, like I had mentioned before with the pandemic, how powerful our programming was and how important that was for us to gain funding so that we could provide those services for schools and for students who didn't have access, who were Title I schools or were learners in remote areas and so forth. So we have a number of different revenue streams that we are working on in order to support that mission. And we have some great companies, EdTech companies and technology companies who have sponsored us in order to provide that free programming in our community of learning and so forth and whatnot. But look, we are applying for grants and foundations. We are applying for grants with foundations, all different types of foundations to help us support that need. We are going after other companies as well for sponsorships, for partnerships, and we also get a fee for our service, but that really only covers the costs of what we are doing. We're working, on a skeletal staff and at the bare minimum just to ensure that we can provide that programming. But that's our goal as a nonprofit, is to raise funds so that all of that is covered, so that nobody has to pay anything. Does that make sense?
It does. I mean, clearly, if you've been around for 28 years, something's working right with the model. There's a question from our Canadian contingent right up here. So Nick.
Yeah. First, I just want to say thank you. This is super interesting. We homeschool our children, so we're actually always looking for additional content to help provide. And I guess I'm tying it into Rotary, and I always try and think about how we can help support. Obviously, I personally work implementing Salesforce for nonprofits. So one of my clients said recently, we make money, or we raise money so we can spend money. So I know that Rotary can always help that. But do you have other ways that maybe you would recommend people help you? I mean, obviously, I love this word of mouth. Money always helps. Are there other ways that we might be able to get involved? Because this is really cool.
We're always looking for content providers too. I mean, if you, Northern California, actually all over the world there, and I'm sure Tammy can speak better to this than me, but we are always looking to expand our content providers so that we can bring new and unique experiences to kids, because we want those experiences that kids are getting. We want kids to remember those and to really get excited about what they're seeing and they're learning, because that's what helps them connect better to learning. It's much more fun to see something and interact with a field trip than to have to read it in a classroom in a book. There's just no comparison.
And to be a content provider, you don't have to be a big organization. You don't have to have a sea lions and a tank behind you in your house. You can be an expert with what you know. So we have amazing individuals who are authors who have done research on the Holocaust, to those who are yoga instructors and look at dance and are performing artists. So it is anyone that has knowledge to bring. It's always amazing when a student gets to be able to say, hey, you can do that for a living, like be a yoga teacher or teach people how to do dance. Yes, there's people out there. Look at their amazing thing they're able to do, and have a cultural exchange at the exact same time.
Would add on as well, if there are any educators in your life or school districts that you're connected with, or educational organizations that you think could benefit from these types of visits, that's another big part of who we work with. Our members are built of educators of all kinds. So if you're able to share with any of them, that is also another really great way to be able to help support.
I'm thinking of a chess educator that I know, as we look at this. One of the things that comes out with this, Shags notes in the chat that this is very much about storytelling, right? And that to capture the attention of kids, to give them the chance to be excited about something that may be kind of a new idea for them, that ability to get people to tell their stories seems to be very powerful. Shags, you want to add something to that?
Yeah, storytelling can be a career.
Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely.
You said how you didn't know you could take something that you could make a living out of it. Well, I'm treasurer of the Storytelling Association in California. I'm telling you, there are people who go around the country making a living telling the most hysterical stories.
Good stuff.
Yes, and it's also those, not only fictional stories, but true stories. It's what got me involved in museums from the very beginning, is hearing that story of someone's historical life. I remember my very first big field trip, because I lived in a very rural area. We drove 4 hours. We're a 7th grader up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, walking through it. And it was the James J. Hill House. And he was a giant railroad baron, big friends with Carnegie and, all the big wigs. And I remember walking around being like, oh, this is like on Titanic, because that movie came out at that exact same time. And I was like, this is so cool. But then at the same point, I kept on thinking, but he's able to be this rich because of all the other people that are working for him. And that really got me diving into the history and saying, if I can make that connection as a 7th grader, I want every kid when they walk into that building to say, hey, this is how this fits into our past as a story. And that's really the goal, is if you can't physically be there, at least virtually connect, and you'll have a memory forever with it.
Yes, and just to add on, sometimes the challenge becomes the busing. It's the busing, getting everyone in a group to be able to get there. So having that physical trip is so exciting, but being able to come in with these virtual visits, these live experiences, that storytelling element keeps allowing these students to have that familiarity with different forms of experts and that real life application of what they're learning about in the classroom, which is really exciting to see, making those connections. I know that it's not as fun as walking around something like Tammy was just explaining, but it'll get them ready to ask questions when they're there, wherever they find themselves.
Nice. So when we think about the idea of like, all right, this is a really big topic, right? Just that whole sense of trying to expand what a student encounters in order to get them excited about their own possibilities. And so one question would be, if you become a member, so there's this free membership, does that mean you get, like, what does that mean? Does that mean you get a newsletter? It tells you about different things that are available. Is that a part of what it means to be a member?
Yeah, and membership means you get access to book all 2,300 virtual field trips from around the world. That's doing the scheduling service is all in there. So 95% of our programs are on demand. So you're using that scheduling system to say, these are my top 3 dates and times as an educator, put it into my classroom, not make me switch gym and science around. You come in between gym and science. For me as a teacher, we always have to worry about that. And then also you're getting a customized newsletter based on your wants and needs. So if you're a kindergarten teacher and all you care about is virtual field trips for kindergartners, and you don't want to hear what the high schoolers and literature class are learning about Romeo and Juliet, you don't have to worry about those virtual field trips. It's customized to you. It also gives you access to that collaboration space with that opportunity also.
Nice. Are there also, I was thinking about this as you first began telling us about the 2,300 programs. Are some of these, are there recordings of experiences that essentially allow someone who might want to get kids at an after-school program or at a, in some kind of group, homeschooling group or class, whatever it may be, to give them a chance to say, this is actually in and of itself a good experience for kids to be able to watch this, to think about this, to build questions as we gear up for a connection that happens via like just video conferencing with a school somewhere else or anything along those lines.
Yes, so there is definitely an opportunity to check out different recordings that are up on the YouTube that's connected to CILC, our YouTube channel. Those are only up for a limited time. So just they'll only be up for a limited time. I think, Tammy, about a month usually is when they switch out. But another really fun way that you can jump into preparing your classroom is we have a maker space that has a variety of different resources, that has lesson plans that can connect to those content provider programs or what you might see on the YouTube or pre-recording. Another really great way to jump in just to check it out is our community of learning that happens at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So wherever you find yourself in the world, that is the time. Please put your time zone connected to that. That is a great way to see a live program. They typically last 45 minutes. They run this season Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then in the other seasons coming up, fall and winter, they may change a little bit on the days, but you'll see a weekly program there where it's really fun to jump in, make and take, family friendly, and also really great for classrooms as well.
All right. Well, as we are kind of running down on time, I'll go through kind of our final finish, and then I'll hand it over to one of you for a final word. Tammy, shall that be you?
I am more than happy to do that for you.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So I will do that for all of you who are watching. Thank you for joining us. It is our pleasure to be able to connect with these fascinating people around the world and tell about the work they're doing to improve the lives of others. You'll see a couple of things a little bit farther down our meeting page that we would love for you to take a little time to engage with. One is our attendance form, and what that is just tells us you were here. We're not going to spam you or anything like that. But it does help us, kind of figure out how we can make what we do better to connect with you in some way. You can even be more direct through our discuss forum at the bottom of the page. And that is a place where our members and our guests leave comments about the programs and other elements in the meeting. They reply to each other as well, and you are welcome to do so. As we always like to do, we hand it back to our speaker for the final word. And just as a thought, those of us who are engaged in the recording at the moment are going to get to keep talking to these people after we finish the recording. That's one of the big perks for being in Rotary Club of Silicon Valley and joining one of these recordings. So file that away, those of you who are kind of like, what is this Rotary thing? So Tammy, I'm going to hand it back to you. Go ahead and finish us off.
Well, thank you, Russian, and thank you all for joining us and watching this recording. We hope you found more information about CILC, but we encourage you all to definitely go check out our website at CILC.org. You can join and become a member absolutely free and start your journey on traveling around the world and interacting with experts in a matter of seconds. and spreading that amazing journey to your students and friends and family. So please do check us out. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Tammy. Thank you, Amy and Allison, and everyone. We will see you next week.